8 facts, each with a sharp turn, a guarded house, a label that backfired, and a career that moved faster than expected. These are the small details that changed the story. Police were sent to guard a house that was almost empty. The doorway still looked important from the street. It was a New York City property, and officers were assigned to watch it. From outside, the house looked like a place that needed protection. The trick was presentation. Someone made the house seem important enough to protect, and that impression brought police to the door. Once the setup worked, officers stayed on duty outside a house that was nearly vacant. The guard was real, even as the rooms behind it were not. In the end, the scene was simple: police outside, a doorway in front, and very little property left to watch. The empty house still looked worth guarding. A white package said it was fine to flush, and that message created a new problem. People still had to guess what really belonged in a toilet. Wet wipes often sit beside sinks in toilets, or disposal choices are easy to mix up. The label "fine to flush" was introduced to reduce that confusion. The problem was the label itself. A message meant for one kind of wipe could sound like permission for anything to go down the toilet. Instead of settling the question, the label added another layer of uncertainty. "Fine to flush" was later discontinued. In the end, one small package symbol had to answer a bigger plumbing question. The toilet, the bin, and the white pack stayed in the same room. Stephanie Gilmore won 4 world titles before most careers even settle in. The odd part is how fast the trophies started arriving. She had just entered the professional surfing circuit. That first season put her on the same tour as the sport's best riders. Then the pattern turned rare. Her first 4 seasons each ended with a world title, one after another. That meant there was no long wait for a breakthrough. The titles came early enough to make her run stand out immediately. So her record is not one hot season. It is 4 straight seasons with the same trophy, lined up on a shelf. A bad review landed, and Aya Ogawa did something unexpected with it. Instead of shutting the page, she used it as the spark. The criticism followed a performance, where words can hit hard. For a writer, a review is not just feedback on paper. Aya Ogawa treated that criticism as inspiration, not a dead end. From that reaction, a new play began to take shape. The play reached the stage, and the result was an Obie Award. A negative review had become a creative push with a real outcome. So the story ends with a page, a stage, and a second chance. One review became the start of a new play, and the award sat beside it. Bird-like details appeared in Alexander McQueen's La Dame Bluey, and they were not random decoration. They pointed somewhere personal. La Dame Bluey is a fashion piece built with avian motifs, meaning bird-inspired shapes and details. The design sits in a world of fabric, stitching, and display. Those birds pointed to Isabella Blow, and to her shared love of birds with McQueen. The motifs worked like a private tribute hidden in the design. The result was a garment that carried memory as well as style. A viewer could see the surface first, then notice the tribute inside it. So the avian details in La Dame Bluey became a quiet celebration of Isabella Blow. In the end, fabric and feathers held the tribute together. A halftime TV interview was going smoothly, then stadium sprinklers cut in and soaked Matilda Nilden on live camera. She was speaking in a calm halftime broadcast, with the pitch behind her and the interview mic close to her face. Then the sprinklers switched on, sending a sudden spray across the interview area and soaking her in seconds. The interruption instantly changed the broadcast tone, and the clip was shared because the timing looked so unexpected. What stayed with viewers was the simple image: a routine sports interview, a sudden sprinkler burst, and a wet sideline mic. Jacqueline Wilson wrote a sequel to Sleepovers 22 years after the original book. That gap is the surprise. Sleepovers was already part of Jacqueline Wilson's earlier work. Years later, the same story world could be opened again. The key move was simple. Wilson returned to an earlier story and wrote a sequel after the long pause. The book did not need a new myth, only a new chapter. That return let the older book connect with readers who arrived much later. A sequel can make a familiar title feel current again. So the odd part is not just the 22-year gap, it is the fresh cover sitting beside the older one, sharing the same shelf. Carmen Marino's name appears in 1951, then again in 2010, beside her granddaughter. One singer, 2 very different stages. In 1951, she sang with a Polish jazz group that placed her voice inside an early post-war jazz scene. Then, in 2010, Carmen Moreno performed again with Anna Serafinska. The family link turned a long career into one shared song. The gap between those dates is the striking part. Her voice crossed decades, from a jazz group to a granddaughter's duet. So the story ends with a simple image: 2 microphones, 1 family line, and a singer whose career reached both ears. From empty rooms to viral clips, every episode here has one clear reveal. If you enjoyed the turn in each story, subscribe and tell us which fact surprised you most.